So I'm here at Teachbeach, which is our outdoor classroom. So what I want to talk about here is extended verse, XV. The XV is a reality virtuality taxonomy. There's two axes in the extended verse. We label them reality, which is the universe made of atoms. We label that alpha. The word atom is a Greek word, and the first letter of that word is alpha. So we label the reality axis alpha, the axis going from left to right. And the axis going from bottom to top is the bits axis, the virtuality axis. Virtual world is made of bits, so we use the Greek letter beta, the second letter of the Greek alphabet, to represent the bits. So the axes are alpha and beta, the first two letters of the Greek alphabet. Here we have a useful taxonomy because it sort of divides the plane up into quadrants. In the lower left quadrant, we have diminished reality and diminished virtuality. And here we have a float tank, a sensory isolation tank, sensory deprivation tank. In a float tank, we have zero input from the real world and zero input from the virtual world. This diminished reality creates a kind of hallucinogenic state, kind of a lucid dreamlike state. This represents zero or small values. And then the real world, we've got physical reality. This is the real physical world, the real universe in which we live. A good example of a fully immersive physical reality experience is cold water swimming, where you just jump into the lake, which we'll be doing shortly. And in cold water swimming, you swim in the lake and you're connected to reality. You're fully immersed in the natural world. You know, the natural world of pebbles and water. And we have, this is the liminal space where the three states of matter all come together. You know, you've got the earth, water, and air, where the three states of matter come together. Fully immersive reality. And then on this axis, we're in the float tank with a VR headset. And so this is a VR float tank. And the whole idea of being in a sensory deprivation tank with virtual reality puts you up on this axis, on the bits axis. No input from the real world and strictly virtual. Interestingly, we have augmented reality, which is where you have a mixture of atoms and bits, say, some alpha and some beta. And up here in this position, we've got the ice water swimming, but with a headset, with a overlay, with a augmented reality overlay. This, for example, is the Vuzix Smart Swim, and this is a augmented reality overlay headset that shows you compass, GPS, heading. We program in where the rocks are, other rock hazards and things like that. Like if there's rocks here, we've got various signals can be displayed on here that give you a heightened sense of awareness of of the actual world that you're in. Now, if we look at the XV continuum, what we really have, so here we've got physical reality, PR, augmented reality, AR, virtual reality, VR, and diminished reality, DR. PR, AR, VR, and DR are these sort of four quadrants, although it's a continuous space, really. But what we really want is XR, which is this overarching theme, which kind of encompasses all of those, and then some. XR allows us to go beyond the 100% point. That's at least its goal. So whereas here we have reality, physical reality on the alpha axis and virtual reality on the beta axis, 100% alpha, 100% beta. And if we put on a VR headset, you could argue that maybe it's 70.7% of each, like kind of an equal length vector, square root of 2. But what we really are trying to do is to reach further out, to come way out on this axis. So we've got actually more than what the real world will give you, because we've got this heightened sense of awareness of the real world. When you're swimming with this thing, you're aware of all these ice fragments and pieces of things, and you're aware of your own body. You get your heart rate down to 30 beats per minute, perhaps. You get your heart rate down really low through biofeedback and so on. So it really amplifies your sense of awareness of both the real and the virtual. And in this sense, extended reality, XR, tries to bring you out from the origin, and it can also bring you in, because you can also use it to attenuate. So XR is this bigger space that encompasses these four and then much more. For example, with this awareness, we might, if you want to, XR can give you a point that's 150% of reality, say, and maybe 50% of virtuality. You maybe only want a little bit of virtual input, but you want to heighten your sense of awareness of the real world. with safety information, overlays, GPS map, compass, heart, and so on. So you come from the origin way out past what the four realities would normally give you. And that's kind of the goal of XR, or one of the goals of XR, is to be able to navigate these other spaces. So XR is any combination of a virtual environment with reality where the virtual environment is responsive to a real or complex valued output from reality by way of real-time computation. This is the paper that I wrote with Charles Wyckoff in 1991. There's a link to it here. XV definition. XV is a single, unbounded, universal, persistent, immersive, shared XR universe. So in some sense, the eXtendiverse is extended reality combined with extended intelligence, XI, the CXI, the Council for Extended Intelligence. I'm one of the founding members of it. And so a goal that we're trying to achieve with XI and with XR is this XV. Now, within this taxonomy, let's introduce a third axis, the social axis. Whereas when we're near the origins, we have atoms, bits. Here we have genes, maybe the smallest unit of humanness. Genes is a Greek word also that starts with the third letter of the Greek alphabet, gamma. So let's label these axes alpha, beta, and gamma. Atoms, bits, and genes sort of near the origin, but of course they extend out to reality, virtuality, and sociality. Now we just take our space here, and when we come out of the page, imagine we come out of the page. So we can have a communal immersive reality experience, like a communal experience in nature. We have ice water swimming together as a group. That's a communal reality experience, an immersive physical reality experience. We can have augmented reality ice water swimming together as a group. So that's a shared augmented reality experience. And of course we can have a completely virtual experience, like shared sensory deprivation float tanks, where we get together and we experience the float tanks together as a group, or any other kind of shared reality. So here's a conceptualization of that concept. We've got the three axes, alpha, beta, gamma, atoms, bits, genes, and more importantly, we've got this space. We have environment, we have little data, big data, and we have surveillance and surveillance. And so here's a simplified version of that same diagram. XV, the eXtendiverse, is the space of environment, virtuality, and valence. The taxonomy that is generated by this kind of looks at a set of octants. We can divide the physical space up. If we use, say, a logarithmic scale, we can have negative values, or we can simply say what's less than a certain amount or more than a certain amount. And so if we flip those around, these axes around, we've got body, ownership, and control. BOC space, body, alpha, control, beta, and ownership, gamma. And this gives us a taxonomy of that space. Here's a little model that I made out of cardboard to kind of show this concept here. And what we have is the body represented here. This is the body, and we've got ownership represented by an owner card. This is ownership, body, ownership, and control. We've got the body, and we've got ownership, and we've got control. So for example, this control knob symbolizes control, and so we have control, or we don't have control, more control or less control on this axis, closer to the body on this axis, like wearables, and further from the body on this axis, and then ownership on this axis. Do you own it and don't own it? So we can put various technologies here. So for example, just because you wear something doesn't necessarily mean you control it. You could even own it. So for example, if you had handcuffs, if you're a police officer with a set of handcuffs and a burglar broke into your house and you pointed your gun at the burglar and said, put on these handcuffs, maybe the burglar grabs your gun and puts your handcuffs on you. So if you're wearing handcuffs that you own, your own handcuffs, but you're not in control, then you're here. You're away from the control, but you're out here on the ownership because you actually own the handcuffs and they're on your body, so they're on the body point. Various other points, like NFT would be over here. NFT is not of the body, but it's something that you own it. Don't necessarily have total control over it. So you can put different technologies on this space. A slave might exist over here, for example. A slave is of the body, but you don't control and you don't own. So, you know, you don't own yourself and you don't control yourself. Maybe you're wearing handcuffs or chains and you don't own yourself, but you're still your body. So that slavery would be over here on this axis. So we can take technologies and taxonomize them into these three dimensions.